Hello and welcome to Drunk on Tea. After building the models from the new 40k Armageddon set recently, I've got a bone to pick with the sprues that GW are currently producing, especially in their starter boxes. So please join me this week as I talk about how building models is becoming more and more complex and why in starter sets this could be a major issue. My first complaint is just how full the new sprues are. I understand that now the sprues are designed by a computer, they can get the perfect yield on them with no wasted space, but they are becoming so cluttered there's hardly any room to get a set of snips in anymore. I have a set of GW snippers and they struggle to get into some of the gaps I needed to remove the pieces. As an experienced model maker, I'm quite happy to cut further away from the piece and then clean up the excess plastic while I'm cleaning up the part. But for a beginner, there's a real possibility that they may be using cheap snippers that are larger and blunter, and while trying to snip as close to the model as possible to get a clean cut, they end up damaging the part. Just a few more millimeters of room would make this task so much easier. We don't have to go back to the days of half a sprue being empty space, but a little bit of room around everything would be quite welcome. While I'm talking about everything being tightly packed onto the sprues, I didn't sign up to complete a puzzle every time I try and build a model. The parts are becoming spread all across the sprue with no logic as to their positioning. Take for example the Orc Boy sprue. Parts of the body come in one corner and then the arms are all the way over the other side of the sprue. This becomes especially obvious on sprues that contain multiple different characters. Knowing this is an issue, in the instruction booklet, GW have even highlighted what parts are to be used by that model. But wouldn't it just make more sense to try and keep the bits together, especially as there is only one way to make a lot of these models? For the older Intercessor kit, they keep all of the body parts that go together in one place, and then because there are several head and weapon options, these are all placed together on a different sprue or different part of the sprue. This is fine, it makes perfect sense, but there is no logic in having part 14 at one end of the sprue and part 15 at the other when they end up going next to each other. If they were doing it for the old Intercessor kit, why now is it a game of hide and seek for every part that I want to clip off? I think these problems come from a lack of knowing who the kit is designed for. GW know that pretty much every 40k player is going to pick up this set, but also it's what used to be called a starter set, which are designed to get new players into the game. Because they knew experienced hobbyists would pick it up, the models are quite complex, with a lot of parts to put together, which is probably why GW didn't see an issue with making the sprues so cluttered. But also, they're push-fit miniatures, designed for beginners who might not even have any glue. But they are expected, however, to have a set of needle nose clippers still. Also, the push-fit seems to have tiny tolerances. I know you don't want your models to fall apart on you, but also they should actually fit together, instead of half the time needing to cut off the pin and glue the part anyway. It's that confusion that I think has caused this odd mishmash of design styles, trying to please everyone. They would have honestly been better not making the models push fit, and then they could have just easily upsold some snippers and glue whenever they sold a box to a beginner. I know that there will be an introductory starter set released soon, but this is the launch set, so a lot of people will pick this up as their introduction to 40k. There is also the slight problem of some of the sprues containing multiple different characters. Like the one for the Banner Knob, Big Boss and Pain Boy. It means that these three units will forever be locked away inside starter sets, or only ever sold as a kit together, until eventually GW design and release a new standalone version of all the models. The models all look fantastic, but having them all on the same sprue is just a little bit limiting to building my Orc army down the line. This is where I think a look back at history may have the happy medium. Any new edition set is going to sell like crazy. What's inside hardly actually matters at this point because it's going to fly off the shelves. Looking back at older starter sets, the models were kept a lot simpler. It's nice to have a character model or two for each side, so it is a legal army straight out the box, unlike the earlier editions, where starter sets just gave you troops and no HQ units. but the box doesn't need to be the most glorious looking version of each of the minis. Less complex models in the starter sets are fine. The models included here are all monopose with perhaps a couple of head options, so why not embrace that and include simple models? The old 2nd edition models where the Gretchen were just a single piece, the Orcs were two, you just had to push fit the arm and gun onto the body, and the Space Marines came in a whopping 3 bits, the Marine, weapon and the backpack. These were great for new players, and with modern CAD design techniques, the models could still look fantastic with lots of detail on them, so they'd hold up next to the rest of the range. HQ units could easily still be made in 4 or 5 parts, and if they want to include a land speeder or death dread, those can be the complex models in the set, something for a new player to try their hand at a more complex build, even if it's still the push fit version. I'm sure simpler models will always look like they came from a starter set, but as a player's collection grows, sprinkling a few of them across units of more advanced models from individual kits, they will blend in with the rest of the range well enough. The other advantage of simpler models, and maybe not trying to cram the box as full of plastic as possible, would be a cheaper price point for the sets. If they can get kept at around the £100 price point, it would be ideal for both experienced players as well as getting new players into the game. Or maybe I'm just barking up the wrong tree. GW don't see their edition boxes as intro sets anymore, but in that case, why even bother making the models push fit? I understand why GW are cramming models onto the sprue. It allows for less sprues in the box, which saves on packaging costs and shipping costs. But there is a point where they just become a pain to work with, and I feel like this set may have crossed that line. But please let me know in the comments below, do you think GW sprues are becoming a puzzled mess of pieces? And do you think that starter sets should be simpler models to build for beginners, or should they aim at more experienced players instead? Thank you very much for listening to my ramble. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, as I'll be starting to paint my Armageddon set in the retro style for both armies. And happy modelling.
Soldiers of Armageddon! Make ready.